Hello there, you're watching All 24 News live from Algiers. These are today's top stories. Zionist forces attacked Palestinians in eastern Nablus, resulting in dozens of suffocations and several arrests. Also coming up, European Parliament intends to establish itself as a civil party in the Morocco case, according to European Parliament press. Ahead as well in our program, Spanish Socialist Workers' ruling party signed a statement calling on Pedro Sanchez to abandon his bias towards the Moroccan occupation in Western Sahara. Russian troops rain artillery down on the last access routes to the besieged Ukrainian city of Bakhmut. Hello again and welcome to the program. First off in our news, the Zionist occupation forces attacked Palestinians in eastern Nablus on Friday, resulting in dozens of suffocations and several arrests in different areas of the West Bank and Al-Quds. This came a day after a death of 15-year-old Mohammed Nidal Salim, who was shot dead by the Zionist occupation in the besieged city of Azum, east of Qalqilia. Meanwhile, the European Union condemned settler attacks on the town of Hawara, which has been under siege for 6 consecutive days. Here's Hassan Barkan with more.
The continuous bloodshed of Palestinian martyrs adds to the already extensive records of the occupying entity. Those who survive the occupation's bullets are often subjected to arbitrary arrests, as was the case with several young men whose homes were stormed in different areas of the West Bank and Al-Quds. On Friday, clashes erupted with the occupation forces southeast of Beit Lahm, during which bullets and poison gas bombs were fired at Palestinians, causing injuries and suffocations in Nablus. The Palestinian city of Hawara has been targeted by fire and bullets for 6 consecutive days, with the extremist Bazlil Smotrich's wish to erase it from existence. The Palestinian Foreign Ministry has denounced the settlers' court's decision to provide legal protection to the perpetrators of this heinous crime, citing it as further evidence of the judiciary system's involvement in covering up crimes against Palestinian citizens.
The decision of the Israeli court is further evidence that the judiciary system and courts in the occupying state are an integral part of the occupation system itself, and new evidence of its involvement in covering up this heinous crime and its perpetrators and providing them with legal protection, which encourages elements of Jewish terrorism to commit more crimes against Palestinian citizens.
The European Union's envoy to Palestine has called for accountability and justice for perpetrators after Zionist settlers torched dozens of houses, shops and cars in and around Palestinian village of Hawara. The envoy's visit to the West Bank aims to witness the damage left by the violence on Sunday.
It is absolutely necessary for us that accountability is fully ensured, that the perpetrators be brought to justice, that those who lost property be compensated. It's even more important that settler violence must stop, because if it continues, there is no future for this place.
As the Zionist escalation reaches its climax, the West Bank is on the brink of an explosion, and the new generation of Palestinian choice of struggle is the way to liberate Palestine. This reinforces expectations about the outbreak of a third intifada and warns of the failure of international efforts to calm the situation before the month of Ramadan.
The UN Human Rights Chief on Friday criticized the remarks put by the finance minister of the occupation authorities in which he called for the Palestinian village of Hawara to be erased, describing the comment as an unfathomable statement of incitement to violence and hostility. Volker Turk was addressing the Geneva-based Human Rights Council, where he formally presented a report on the situation in the Palestinian territories.
The situation in the occupied Palestinian territory is a tragedy. A tragedy above all for the Palestinian people. over half a century of occupation has led to widening dispossession, deepening deprivation, and recurring and severe violations of their rights, including the right to life. Nobody could wish to live this way or imagine that forcing people into conditions of such desperation can lead to an enduring solution.
Moving on now, following months of simmering discord, Turkey, a right-wing IYI party, withdrew from the main opposition alliance, rejecting its proposal to make the biggest opposition party leader, Kemal Kılıçdaroğlu, their election candidate, and potentially weakening the challenge to President Recep Tayyip Erdogan. IYI party leader Meral Akşener said her party, the second biggest in the alliance, would not bow down to pressure to accept him. This comes after President Recep Tayyip Erdogan said this week the elections would be held on May 14th.
Unfortunately, as of yesterday, the table of 6 of opposition parties has lost the ability to reflect the will of the people in its decisions. The table that we have set at with goodwill for the common benefit of our people turned from being a joint mind platform that we discuss the potential candidates, but into an approval table that is working on rubble stamping only one candidate by blacklisting all other alternatives.
To a different story now. On Friday, Switzerland announced that it would ease its sanctions on Syria to facilitate the delivery of humanitarian aid, especially to those affected by the recent earthquake. This decision follows similar measures taken by the United States and the European Union. The Swiss government stated that it would expand humanitarian exceptions to facilitate humanitarian activities in Syria, particularly the response to the February 8th earthquake. Russia said on Friday it would take measures to prevent new border incursions, a day after accusing Ukraine-backed nationalists of killing 2 people in a cross-border raid in southern Russia. Now, Russian troops have rained artillery down on the last access routes to the besieged Ukrainian city of Bakhmut, bringing Moscow closer to its first victory in half a year after the bloodiest fighting of the war. Here is Nabil Khazini with more in this report.
Approaching the city of Bakhmut is like approaching a dead end. This is how the city looks like from above, a complete devastation. Bakhmut knows one of the most relentless fighting and lengthiest battles of the year-long war that turned it into a ghost town. The Russians have mostly encircled the city from 3 directions, bringing Moscow closer to a major victory. It would be a stepping stone for Russia to capture the surrounding Donbass region, an important war aim.
It was decided to strengthen and hold Bakhmut garrison. There are certain operational tactical actions, for example, related to the deoccupation of certain areas. The Ukrainian army will carry on these actions.
It's feared that the conflict is going beyond Ukraine. This is the car that was a target in the Russian city of Bryansk. Moscow said Ukrainian sabotage group fired at civilians who were inside, 2 of whom were killed.
There is a special border security regime in place there. Additional measures are being taken. Of course, yesterday's act of terror will be investigated and measures to prevent such events in the future will be taken.
For months, fighting has centered on towns and villages around Bakhmut. Even as Russia has faced setbacks, it aims to seize the whole of the eastern Donbass region.
To a different development now. Speaking at an event in India a day after G20 foreign ministers meeting, Russian Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov said that Russia will not let the West blow up gas pipelines again, and said that Moscow would no longer rely on the West as an energy partner. Moscow has suggested that Western countries were responsible for the blast that damaged the Nord Stream pipelines in September.
affected by the reaction of the West.
We would not anymore rely on any partners in the West. We would not allow them to blow up the pipelines again. By the way, we asked for an investigation, and immediately this investigation request was denied. The Americans called it nonsense. And where Seymour Hersh published his findings, you saw what the reaction of Europeans and Americans was. Germany was humiliated, physically, morally, and in any other way.
In a different story, U.S. President Joe Biden and German Chancellor Olaf Scholz held talks on Friday focused largely on the war in Ukraine, China, and other matters. Both leaders said they would continue working in lockstep. Joe Biden thanked Olaf Scholz for helping to maintain the pressure on Russian President Vladimir Putin. During the meeting, the U.S. President lauded Germany's commitment to providing military and other support to Ukraine. Chinese Foreign Ministry spokesperson Mao Ning said on Friday the United States is the primary source of nuclear threat in the world. Mao's comment came at a regular news briefing when asked to comment on media reports that Homeland Security Advisor to U.S. President Elizabeth Sherwood Randall said that the United States needs to invest China in work to diminish nuclear threats.
As a country with the most powerful nuclear weapons, the US should adopt a responsible nuclear policy. The US should thoroughly reflect on its nuclear policy, earnestly fulfill its special and primary responsibilities for nuclear disarmament, reduce the role of nuclear weapons in national security policies, take meaningful and practical actions to reduce nuclear risks, and maintain global and regional peace and stability of security strategy in a responsible manner.
The IAEA head Rafael Grossi arrived in Iran on Friday for high-level meetings. According to the official IRNA news agency, or IRNA, the visit comes amid discussions with Tehran on the origin of uranium particles enriched to up to 83.7% purity, very close to weapons grade, at its Fordo enrichment plant, according to a report by the nuclear watchdog. The head of Iran's Atomic Energy Organization, Mohammad Islami, said earlier that the Islamic Republic's production is at 60%, according to state media. In Greece, thousands of demonstrators poured onto the streets after the train accident that killed 57 passengers. Protesters clashed with police in the capital, Athens. Many in Greece see the crash as an accident that had been waiting to happen, and the rail union blamed successive governments' disrespect towards Greek railways for leading to this tragic result. More than 80 activists of the ruling Spanish Socialist Workers' Party signed a statement calling on the Prime Minister and Secretary General of the party, Pedro Sanchez, to abandon his bias towards the Moroccan occupation in Western Sahara. Here's Marwa Bilaywer.
80 personalities from the Spanish Socialist Workers' Party launched an electronic petition under the slogan Socialists for the Sahara, calling for Sanchez's government to respect international law provisions, which guarantee the right of the Sahrawi people to self-determination, and denouncing the government's biased position towards Morocco regarding Western Sahara issue.
The current Spanish government has broken its pledges to which the Socialist Party was committed to, and it was the one that engaged from the beginning in embodying that electoral program in support for the perpetuation of Sahrawi people rights. Today, despite deviation from this trend, there are many socialists who continue their work in the same line of struggle for Sahrawi people's self-determination.
A website of Socialists for the Sahara initiative was launched for an aim to review all issues related to Sahrawi people's right to self-determination and independence. The petition is set to be open to everyone to join in order to engage in this initiative that expresses its full solidarity with the Sahrawi people.
We call on the Spanish government and its president to work actively in the diplomatic, bilateral and multilateral fields and within the framework of the United Nations to promote a peace solution to the Western Sahara conflict that respects international law and allows the Sahrawi people to exercise their right of self-determination through a fair and impartial referendum that guarantees independence.
Pedro Sanchez's biased position towards Morocco regarding the Sahrawi issue had serious repercussions on Spain on internal and external levels. It also created a rift within the Socialist Party and a clear division within the party's electoral basis. More than 25 Spanish municipalities have already risen up against the Spanish government president in support for Western Sahara.
Belgian media, citing the press section of the European Parliament, reported that the European Parliament intends to establish itself as a civil party in the Morocco case. The deadline for filing a complaint and appointing a lawyer who will represent the Parliament is pending. The European Parliament confirmed that the step is an attempt to establish more mechanisms to ensure transparency in its structures and amend the parliamentary work ethics law to prevent any external party from exploiting the legislative institution to serve its interests.
This is ongoing. Parliament intends to take the relevant internal steps to achieve this goal. No deadline has been set for this complaint, nor the name of the lawyer who will represent Parliament.
Moving on, 5 unions in the agricultural sector in Morocco announced a series of strikes with a national strike every week to condemn poor professional and social conditions and the ministry's disregard for legitimate demands. The Moroccan University of Agriculture also plans to organize a warning pause in front of the Ministry of Agriculture on March the 8th to protest the lack of respect for legal representation and inclusion from the sectoral dialogue. On Friday, Italian Coast Guard rescued 211 migrants off the coast of Lampedusa after a recent migrant tragedy. The night rescue operation was carried out by 2 patrol boats after they intercepted a fishing boat in distress with numerous migrants on board, around 15 miles off the coast of the Sicilian island of Lampedusa. And finally in our news, and according to the Food and Agriculture Organization of the United Nations, the global food price index fell for the 11th consecutive month in February, continuing the decline since the beginning of the Ukrainian war. There are fears of continuing difficulty in transporting inputs, agricultural products, and raw materials. Well, that's it for today's news. For more, you can always visit our social media platforms. From me and the rest of the team, thank you for watching, and bye for now.